Endless Space 2 is another game in the franchise of the game I'm going to be talking about, Dungeon of the Endless. Dungeon of the Endless is a game about opening doors in a dungeon. A lot of doors, endlessly. But really, you're taking control of a crew in a fight for survival against overwhelming odds. Use up to 4 heroes and their unique abilities while managing the resource system to the best of your ability to ascend floor by floor out of your totally not Star Wars inspired escape pod to taste that sweet flavor of freedom. But good luck with that. You might ask, why talk about a game that was released 7 years ago and was only mildly successful? Well, that's kind of part of the reason. I've never really heard anyone talk about this game, and I think more people need to give it a look. It kinda flew under the radar. But also, and probably more important, is that there is a new entry in the series on the horizon. And it has a fresh coat of gay paint. More on that later. Dungeon of the Endless is a roguelike tower defense with RPG elements. What that means is every time you play the game, it plays a little differently. And you're going to be building modules or towers to defend rooms, and more importantly, the almighty crystal from waves of monsters, while leveling up your heroes and equipping them with gear you find in the dungeon. The ultimate goal of the game? To live. But there are multiple floors between you and the exit, and plenty of nasty things that want to see you cease existing. The first thing you should note when starting up the game is that you'll have a choice between 2 difficulties. Too easy and easy. Trust me, that's bait. Be a puss boy and keep it on too easy until you become very familiar with the game. Dungeon of the Endless's version of easy is like running your reproductive bits through a meat grinder while squirting you with lemon and a dash of salt. So just a normal Tuesday for the average Souls player. The next thing you'll notice is that there are multiple escape pods, some of which you will need to meet a requirement before playing. Each of the pods offer unique challenges to the game, but you'll want to start off on the basic one. And that's when you meet your first real challenging choice: what heroes to pick to start with. I'm going to break down most of the heroes for you here, giving you a general idea of what they're good at. Let's start with Max O'Kane. He is totally not Han Solo, with the face of Anton Sokolov, and a game with an intro that in no way resembles Star Wars. I'm starting with him because he is one of the 4 base starting heroes of the game, and is also considered by many as one of the best early game heroes. Why is that? Well, first I should explain the resource system of the game. Bit of a misdirect, but hey, shut up. The resource system is called FIDS, which refers to food, industry, dust, and science. If anyone is familiar with Endless Space 2, this will sound very familiar. Food is used to either level up your heroes or heal their HP. You generate food through a major module, which you build in a powered room with an available slot for a major module. These glowing platforms, here. Not every room will have these, so you really need to think about which resources you want to be generating per floor, as most of the FIDS is generated through these modules. Industry is primarily generated through a module. Industry is used to build the modules, both major and minor. This is the most straightforward out of all of the resources. For each resource generating major module you build on a floor, the cost of the next resource generating major module you build increases by 5, starting at 20. Science is generated like industry and food, primarily through modules. It is used at an endless artifact, but let's just call it a research module, which you will randomly encounter in a room to learn how to build completely new modules or upgrade the ones you already know how to make. Science can also be force-fed to heroes to reset their cooldowns, which I do regularly on my personal favorite hero, but we'll get to that. Dust is used to make your crystal generate more light, so it can power the rooms you come across, which is incredibly important, because without power, nothing works. 10 dust is the equivalent to 1 room, so if you're at 150 dust, you can power up to 15 rooms. Remember, dust is directly tied to the crystal, and any monster who makes it to your crystal and starts whacking away at it, they will start directly dwindling your dust on that floor permanently. There isn't technically a module for earning dust like the other resources. You either have to randomly find it in a room or by killing monsters, nor does it carry over when ascending to a new floor like the other resources. Industry, food, and science all generate per round, i.e. every time you open a door. You can also discover a flat amount of each type randomly in a room. Or you can find traders who use them as a currency, which you can either spend to buy items or sell to get that resource. So back to Max. This vest-adorned, single-handed blaster-wielding opportunist excels at a very important mechanic of this game: opening doors. He does this through a skill, Pilfer, which gains increased dust upon opening a door that leads to a room that gives you dust. This is important as there are very few ways to generate dust, and dust is the only way to power rooms. Granted, at the end of the day, Pilfer grants a very finite amount of dust, but every little bit helps. Especially for early players, I highly recommend having Max in your roster and opening doors, because the rest of his kit makes him quite versatile, like the Soldier 76 of this game.
I've got you in my tights.
You might, however, see that his skills are a bit counterintuitive. While he is the door-opening man, he is also an operator. Heroes with the operator skill can stay with a major module to increase its effectiveness, but they are required to stay there in that room for one round. If Max is constantly opening doors, he won't do that. And if you want him to just be an operator, there are plenty of better operators out there. Still, he is a great base hero, for starters and even for veterans. Next you have Sarah Numa, a clear reference to Sexy Suit Samus, as her name is literally an anagram. And she's wearing the sexy suit with the flowing golden hair. Like you, I wanted to absolutely love this character, and she is fun in her niche, which is going fast like Sonic. She's great at zooming around, potentially opening doors, and if you're using her, she is likely your crystal runner for when you want to ascend to the next floor. But that's about it. She sits around average to below average in damage output, operating or taking a hit. And then there is Gork, a chimeric abomination of a palette-swapped Duke Nukem, and the actor Michael Shanks. He has one job, and he does it well, sitting there like a ton of bricks and being a damage sponge for the rest of the group. He deals some damn decent damage for such a great tank on top of that. Be warned though, he moves slower than a molasses-covered sloth with 2 broken legs crawling through a tar pit. You also have Dina Ratchet, an autistic Jean Grey, whose favorite pastime is giving shots to children, out of nothing but the cruelness from her own heart. She's the heel slut of the group, but honestly the rest of her kit is pretty good considering. She's able to work as an operator and deal some pretty decent damage, though nothing amazing. Max, Sarah, Gork, and Dina are the starting 4 heroes you have to choose from, and it's a pretty decent pool of mechanics. You have one of the best tanks in the game, one of the fastest heroes in the game, a healer who works as an operator, and a door-opening jack of all trades. They're a malleable bunch, but there are plenty of heroes out there to discover. The first of these I want to talk about is Rakia Pulmani, the chain-smoking Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise. You might ask why that is. Well, let me tell you, it's because she smokes poop. I mean, canonically, literally. She rolls up and smokes full-blown turds. What a gal. On top of that though, she's one of the best operators in the game. When you leave her in a room, she doesn't just hotbox, she makes a meat-grinding kill box. With the right damage-dealing modules, she hyper-buffs them to become murdering masters. When you want to make a room your runner leads all the monsters to create a cyclone of blood and bone, Rakia's your girl. Now let's talk about my personal favorite hero in the game, Chef Nanner. Chef Nanor, Nanner Bananas. He's a Gordon Ramsay Darth Nihilus, and my dudes, he's hungry. At first glance, he looks like a pile of garbage. His attack, defense, and operative skills are all subpar. So what makes him stand out? One single ability, cooking with gas. This ability is a floor-wide damage over time ability that increases the dust drop rate from monsters. If you save a backstock of signs and keep refreshing its cooldown when you need it, it is the best ability in the game. Cook on, Nanner. Opbot DV8 is exactly like C-3PO. They're both robots the color of piss that serve no purpose. I mean, Opbot's a half-decent operator and minor healer, but in my opinion, there are better operators out there, and his little bit of healing doesn't really ever make Opbot the better choice. But if you're hurting for an op and you run into him, he's by no means a wasted slot. Golgi Furtiver is a world-class delusional burglar who likes to eat bugs and thinks she's a spider. This Spoder woman moves and attacks very fast, making her a good runner and a decent damage dealer. Be careful though, she can take about as much damage as a real spider, so make sure she doesn't get squashed. Skroig is a musketeer reject of the necrophage species. While he may be a dirty little bug man, he carries himself like a conceited scholar and duelist. He deals some pretty decent damage, and with good attack speed. But where he really shines is his ability, Red Plume. This ability turns the room Skroig is occupying into utter chaos, making monsters attack each other while he valiantly stabs them in the back. Tro Pequeño is a pint-sized can of whoop-ass. A traditional berserker, he's short and pissed off about it. One of the best damage-dealing heroes in the early game, Tro can cut down just about anything that gets in his way. He does get outscaled, however, so without the proper support, he will for sure fall off in the mid to late game, so watch out for that. Lady Joleri Tulak is a part of the Broken Lords, which are basically Arthas-like paladins.
The light is my strength.
You are past redemption. Betrayer of the light.
Greetings, my lord.
For my father, the king.
Who also, according to Tro, has a juicy fat dumper. Honestly, Joleri is pretty damn good at both surviving and killing monsters, but she has one enormous drawback. She has both a passive and an active skill that reduces dust earned from killing monsters. Since dust is one of the hardest and arguably one of the most important resources of this game, it's hard to justify a lengthy stay for her in the party. Ken Masakue is a masochistic ex-soldier who would rather try to die via autoerotic asphyxiation than do his job as the ship's guard. Pain is his only motivation, and though his personality reeks of taking a hit, he's not a tank at all. What he is, however, is one of the best damage dealers in the game. Equip him with a decent weapon and watch him get to work. Just be sure to keep an eye on his health bar. Elise Ness is here to kick bubblegum and chew ass, and she's all out of bubblegum. As a space marine from StarCraft 40K, she wants nothing more than to eradicate the Zergrophage like Skroig. But survival will have to do in the meantime. She's a pretty solid tank who deals good damage, but she does have kind of a big drawback. She cannot wear armor. She can use an additional trinket slot to try to make up for it, but there are so many damn good armor pieces for tanks that it can really feel like a hindrance. Still, she's actually pretty solid. Warden Mormish is a Mad Max outcast who is a pretty decent operator, but also a little confusing. He has one ability that allows him to get more dust from monsters that die in the room with him, but then he also has an ability that increases the attack power of the group while there are no monsters in his room. You could argue this makes him adaptable, but it usually just comes across as clunky. Still, if you decide to dedicate to one or the other, he's pretty good. Hikensha is a lab chicken that was poked and prodded until she became the example of the phrase, Jack of all trades. She can operate, repair modules, deal decent damage, take a pretty good hit, has good passives and active abilities. While she never truly excels at any role, she is an excellent fill slot for your party. Mizzy Curtis, Curtiz? Curtis nuts. Anyway, she's a big titty Tommy mommy who was once a member of the Sisters of Mercy, basically a bunch of fat-titted Mercy mains. She doesn't come alone though. She's bottled with a malevolent spirit who lusts for ultra-violence. Together they make a potent damage-dealing hero, one that thrives by their collective self, meaning with no other heroes in the same room as them. She doesn't use weapons though, so she relies entirely upon scaling with her level. If you're not able to feed her copious amounts of food, she's probably not your best pick. After all that, there's still some DLC tied to the game that offers even more heroes. The first you might notice if you've ever played TF2, or more so if you really hate yourself and still play TF2. The Heavy, Medic, Engineer, and Pyro, who all act just about how you'd expect. Misha Cherney, the Heavy, is basically Ken to Gork's Ryu. They play the same roles in a very similar way. Del Bradford, the Engineer, is a pretty good operator who has a unique passive that can either really help or harm you. Gear Check. This ability forces anyone who has the repair skill in the room with Del, including himself, to repair while in combat. So if your damage dealers happen to have the repair skill, they will favor repairing modules in combat to dealing damage. As long as you are mindful of this, however, it can be a lifesaver. Casper Harab, the Medic, is basically Sub-Zero to Dina's Scorpion. He fills the same role as her and plays similarly, but is a bit more defensive, whereas she is a bit more offensive. Pat Bates, the Pyro, plays a lot differently than most heroes. He doesn't benefit from attack power on gear like every other damage dealer. Instead, he scales pretty heartily with his level, and has a unique combo of abilities that allow him to deal some good damage over time. In order to achieve this, he usually negates other sources of damage other than dots, including the rest of your party. So while he pairs extremely well with someone like Chef Nanner, he doesn't so much with hard hitters like Ken or Tro. There are other DLCs not tied to TF2, being Josh Natello, Cray Yang, and Rosetta Q. Josh Nutella is one of the best operators in the game, based solely on the fact he has the highest wit, the statistic which directly affects operating ability. His drawback is his flamboyant running animation. But really, it's that while he's a great operator, he's not amazing at being in the front lines if you're keen on making a kill room. He has a few ways to enhance a kill room, but you need to be careful because he has the durability of paper. If a monster even looks at the poor guy, he just might die. Cray Yang is a Draken. She's another jack-of-all-trades types, and she does it pretty good, but with a pretty big drawback as far as that archetype goes. She has one of those dust reduction abilities. In my opinion, this filthy Argonian just does not offer enough to the group to justify it. Rosetta Q is a murderous little bot who is designed to perform better in combat the more she gets surrounded. Honestly, if your plan is to group up enemies in a room and take them all down, she's pretty solid. There is one ability of hers you need to be real careful of, and that is Tower of Babel. This is a hard execute for monsters in the room with her at 25% health and below, which also makes them blow up for damage. With this explosion, you can chain reaction your own heroes and towers with the damage it produces, and kill yourself. Take care you don't commit Toaster Bath. There are 2 other characters out there, but those are secret characters. Shh, it's a secret. So, pick your difficulty, choose your pod, select your roster, and get to opening doors in a fight for survival.
Okay, goodbye. We will piss through all the resources we need to... Oh, hi. I'm a creeper. We're Gucci. Yep. Just never look back. No. Oh, it's the lack of defense. Yong, yong, yong. Stop. Please. No. This is gay and fake. I'm sorry. I thought they would follow you for some reason. This is not looking good. Excellent. What? We did it. It's a nice touch that everything is blowing up behind us, because gonna have copious amounts of lesbian schism.
Now, I mentioned there is another game in the series coming, and it's titled more simply Endless Dungeon, which tells us it's going to be its own game, inspired by Dungeon of the Endless. But similar enough, we should briefly talk about it. We see familiar things like industry generators, the crystal, the hero roster, but we also see new things like better micromanagement of your heroes and a playstyle that almost feels like it's more like an action RPG. But it also looks, well, a little gay. And by that, I don't mean it's akin to taking a fatty sausage up the pooper. I mean happy, colorful, upbeat, silly, cartoony. It's an all too common style these days. And while it does the trick for some titles, I feel like it's missing the mark in this franchise. While a lot of the dialogue is comical in the original, there is a general vibe of danger and almost bleak helplessness and flippant callous disregard for life. You truly felt it when you lost a hero in their fight for survival. The only colors that really pop are the colors that matter, and to me, that added to the overall aesthetic. I don't hate it, but I worry that vibe might get lost in the bright colors, whimsical proportions, and jokes of respawns. Granted, a lot of that could just be the vibe the trailer itself was generating and not the game as a whole. And regardless, I'm still very excited to see what's to come. I do want to quickly go over what little we know about the hero roster though, and keep in mind this isn't directly a sequel, so expect some things to be quite different. From the trailer, we see what seems to be a few offensive gunners. We have one in this minigun cowboy Craver, and one as Zed, the narrator of the trailer. We see some kind of plague doctor alchemist, so potentially a healer or damage over time dealer, as well as a shielded robot with some defensive abilities. We don't see any form of operating yet, but I feel like that's an inevitability. It's pretty hard to tell what else might be in this roster as they do have a few silhouettes, but you can tell there's going to be a Bugman and expect a few races from the Endless franchise as a whole, but as far as roles goes, we don't know. We don't see any kind of interface, so we don't see what kind of limitations there will be for modules, equipment, or ability diversity in heroes. But it's clear they will in some ways play differently, as a highlight of the trailer is switching up your squad, which for some reason is now 3 instead of 4, which I found potentially problematic. When you take a game that is either similar enough or a direct sequel, and you reduce the number of players in a co-op game, it just, I don't know, it feels off. Maybe there will be more game modes or potentially more slots added in multiplayer later. My hope is that they are not doing things simply to make it stand out as a different game than Dungeon of the Endless, thereby hamstringing it. But too little is known at this point, and I'm a negative person by nature, so all will probably work out just fine. Honestly, I'm still looking forward to it either way, and I can't wait to hear more, and eventually get my hands on it to inevitably die over and over again. I hope you do too. Well, have fun, not the die. Anyway. Until then, you can pick up Dungeon of the Endless for a damn good price, even when it's not on sale, which I highly recommend you do, especially for the amount of time you'll invest in it. If you found your way to the end here, I appreciate you spending time with me. If you enjoyed your time, I'd love it if you fed me a like and a slap on that sub bell. Or you could go ahead and demean me and leave me a mean comment. Or you could leave a comment about what you might want to hear me talking about in the future. Either way, thank you. Have a hell of a time out there, heroes.